how do you bring all that good stuff into the room when you have sometimes, I'm sure, very official people, people with informal titles, people from different socioeconomic settings, which are magnified in the city setting often. But when you get them all into the same room, those stakeholders, how do you get that trust thing amidst them so you enjoy all of those good implications?
First, and that's inherent to any stakeholder engagement, clarify very early on how inputs of the consultation are going to be used and who is expected to contribute to what is the clear objective and the expected outcome. And it's not because you are putting 25 people around the table that this is going to lead to a co-decision or a co-production. And this is absolutely fine. There are different levels of engagement of stakeholders. It can go from sharing information all the way through, building consensus, and why not, in the end, higher up take decisions. But this needs to be clarified ex ante, because if it is not, then you fall either in the typical caveat of what we call the consultation capture, or the consultation fatigue. People have the feeling they've been asked what they think, but then not much is happening because ex ante we didn't facilitate that understanding. The second point that is extremely important for us as OECD is also full transparency on who we engage, what for, and when. Usually, when we are carrying out policy dialogues, there's a very open, inclusive process done ex ante, whereby, the full list of stakeholders is shared, and nobody gets in a room without knowing basically who is in that room. That's the basic requirement for trust. And it doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean that conversation is going to flow. It doesn't mean you're not going to have awkward moments where sometimes you're wondering what is going on. And I think sometimes what is not said is equally important to what is actually said. But I would say you have a level playing field, whereby everybody's comfortable up front. We're not meant to trap anyone in any process. And then there is the consultation per se, where there are also a number of rules that need to be facilitated, the neutral moderator. We have many processes that can lead to inclusive consultation. Of course, we did sometimes policy dialogues with 120 stakeholders over a 3-hour consultation. Not everybody can take the floor, but you have technology now that helps you through survey, polls, real-time, active exercises to make sure each stakeholder who wants to speak has a chance to contribute somehow in the process. So the way you run the meeting, the way you ensure that no one is left behind, that everybody gets to share a voice, where you clarify that it's not because a point is made that it's going to be included, or that is going to influence. In the end, the OECD provides an outsider view, but you are absolutely crystal clear and transparent in reverting back to the stakeholders and explaining concretely, this is a very good point, but it's not substantiated. This is a good point, but our evidence shows that, etc. And we do that with each of the stakeholders that voice their concerns at some point of the process. And then there's the third and last step, which is what happens after the consultation process, having also a process whereby those that have been consulted at some point of the process get to see the zero draft of what could become the OECD analysis and share a final round of views, comments, etc. Again, with the clear understanding that the OECD is managing the final trade-off, and that member countries, of course, are the ones that are scrutinizing the content and approving it. But I think all this process, at the end, for me, the most beautiful part of the job is when we are done with the report, the data set, the analysis, the action plan, the checklist, etc. Things happen that we would never have suspected. An NGO goes to the media and holds the government accountable for that commitment or that recommendation because it was somehow associated at some point of the process. And this sort of butterfly effect is what makes us think sometimes that, part of the job is done and some change is going to happen. But I think if you create that coalition of the willing, in a way that is sufficient, transparent, trustworthy, etc., you can be amazed and surprised by the level of change that this is going to trigger in the country, because those stakeholders know way better their constituencies and their places than we will ever, regardless of the number of consultations we carry out. So we see ourselves really as enablers, as facilitators, as promoters. We bring the technical expertise, but we're also very humble in understanding that the places, that the people are the ones that can really make that change happen